swear to God, if this video is not gonna be done, I'm going to toss this camera into the garbage. I got this, I got this.
I've been feeling nothing lately when without you. I know that something special made me think about you. About you, you.
It's okayelxna here, and I hope you're doing okay today. And welcome to the first episode of my Study Abroad Send Back and Chat series. But yeah, this is gonna be a series where I'm just gonna be, sitting back and just kind of reflecting on traveling and studying in South Korea. I don't know if you guys noticed from any of my previous videos, I kind of try to drop some hints here and there, but earlier this year, for my spring semester of my junior year, I actually got to study abroad in South Korea, which was like a big lifelong goal of mine ever since I was in middle school, to study abroad somewhere and then going to a country that I really admire, which is South Korea. Everything kind of still feels like a dream. Everything kind of just fell into place in ways that I never expected, and truly, I just love talking about my experience about it and hope that I can maybe even inspire some others to try and explore as well. Hey everyone, it's Editing Elena here. I'm so sorry to interrupt the video, but unfortunately I forgot to film one little section. So here it is. I'm not gonna try and fake the whole setup again and get dressed for that. I'd like to preface that this video is going to be very, very, very boring, because again, I'm going to be talking about information regarding like passports, applications, and visas. And if you're here for an interesting video, I mean, maybe you will think this is interesting, but unfortunately I will not be as entertaining, so if you'd like, click off now. I'm not going to be butthurt about it. But of course, for those who are really thinking about going through with the whole study abroad process, hopefully this video can give you some little tips and tricks about filling out paperwork, as well as trying to manage and organize everything before you leave the country. Second, as much as I'd like to say that this is a deep dive video, a lot of information I may give you may not be up to date, may not be accurate, and is truly from my experience alone. As much as I'd like to say that I can give general or universal answers for everything, every university, every program, and in every country has different requirements, different paperwork needing to be done. Sometimes it will be more or less, and I may not have gone through that. So hopefully you can still find some helpful tips in this here and there, even if it's really small, because then my job would be done. But always make sure to double check with your university and your program, because they are going to be the best form of information. So back to the video. So there's a big reason why I decided to title this video Paperwork, Patience, and Proactivity, besides my English major brain thinking was going to be funny, because it really isn't. But I really do believe those three P's go hand in hand with each other when you're deciding to get ready to leave the country and go to school somewhere else. Every university and every program will be different. Some may be a little bit more accessible, such as my university, when it comes to certain requirements and certain paperwork needing to be done. However, I also know that there are a lot of universities that are a little bit more exclusive and a little bit more competitive, meaning that certain paperwork may be a little bit more or a little bit more difficult to procure. So always make sure to research your program on your school website before you decide to move forward. And of course, if you have any other extra concerns before you move forward, be sure to email or even meet with the coordinator who is in charge of the entire program. For my university, we had about 5 to 6 steps to the actual paperwork process. I say 5 to 6 because the first one is really the matter of if you have one already or not, which is a passport. Of course, a passport is very important to have because it's one of the bigger forms of identification that will grant you access into different countries around the world. However, it's very crucial to have when you're filling out your actual university application as well as your visa application. I can share my experience with the whole application process for a passport, and truly, I believe it's a pain in the ass. Acquiring a passport takes a lot of time to organize, and you do not want to do these things last minute. Unfortunately, I was one of the people who did it last minute, so I was scrambling around a lot trying to get everything organized and submitted on time just so I can give some valid information to my coordinator. Long story short, my old passport would expire July 2023, and the visa application required you to have a valid passport that would be good for at least 6 months after your time abroad. I was scrambling and tried as much as possible to be on time for these appointments, but sometimes I would forget certain bits of information where I say organize and make sure you have all your required documents, such as your birth certificate, a proof of address, a valid state ID of some sort, your passport photo, and the actual fees plus extra if you decide to expedite your passport, such as myself. Which wasn't necessary, but I did it anyway because I was very worried that I wouldn't get everything on time and that this would be the one thing that would stop me. But it didn't. Truly, if you want to take anything from that, make sure your passport is valid and make sure that you have all your paperwork available when you're submitting the actual application. And my bigger bit of advice, even if you don't plan on traveling in the next few years, it's good just to have a passport as another form of identification. Again, a passport is valid for up to 10 years if I am correct. So either if you do or you don't travel that time, just having it for identification reasons is very important. So yeah. So the second step after the whole passport process is actually a little bit more relaxed, so you can calm down a little bit more. And that would be filling out your interest forms for your coordinator. Basically, interest forms are just, as it implies, interest in the program and just trying to keep information of yourself on file. So you may not have to share very much, just, your basic name, your number, address, your school emails, your normal emails, as well as like what year you're in, your major, and like your school ID. And then sometimes they'll even ask for a picture of your passport just to keep on file. However, I do know certain universities may even ask for transcripts. Really depends on how the university runs, of course, but always make sure to see a checklist for all that information and to always ask questions to the coordinator themselves, because since they do handle all this paperwork, they are going to know it like the back of their hand. The third step is a little bit stressful-ish, and this is where, sometimes the process kind of ends, and that is usually nominations and scholarships. Again, depending on the type of program, for my school, mainly just because of how small we were, and then I think because of COVID, the interest in studying abroad was still a little bit lackluster just because traveling had changed for that time. It made it a little bit easier for me and my friend who went with me to get accepted and nominated. However, I also know that certain programs may be a little bit more competitive, meaning that sometimes there's a chance you may lose to someone else. And unfortunately, it's just one of those things that you kind of have to get over and hope that you can do it next time. Truly, it should not be a stopping point for yourself, thinking that you cannot go to the country you really want to go to school in. Maybe it's just like a pump in the brakes just to tell you that maybe this is not the time. Sometimes that does happen, but it should not stop you from still wanting to go. And you can always try again for the next semester. Like a 3-point step 3.1, I guess you can say, would be scholarships, internships, and like part-time jobs. This is not really a step per se, but it's just kind of one of those suggested things students should do and consider before they go further into the actual university application. For those who don't know, studying abroad is quite a financial decision that you might need to sit down and think about, because you never know how much you're going to be paying out of pocket, whether that's being for tuition, housing, traveling fees, as well as just normal like survival things like food and like fun activities. It's one of those things that sometimes really deters people from moving forward with studying abroad. Study abroad programs will encourage is to try and find scholarships. One of the biggest scholarships that most coordinators will propose to students is the Gilman Scholarship, which is issued by the US Department of State. Pretty much you have to just write 3 essays about why you want to go, what that experience will do for you, and what that experience will do for your community. And students have the chance to win $1,000 to up to $4,000, and that can be used for anything as far as tuition all the way up to just traveling cost. Of course, certain universities may have different perks depending on what university connection they have. For example, my university had been partners with our partner school in Seoul for quite a long time actually. We have a lot of perks like, the tuition you pay at our school will be the same exact rate you pay in South Korea, and that any form of scholarships, financial aid, etc. can also be transferred over for that tuition. I was very, very fortunate, and I'm not trying to brag, but I do have a full ride scholarship at my university, meaning that for all 4 years of my education, it is covered by my university. That also includes my time in South Korea. So when I was in Seoul, I did not have to pay for my tuition, which really saved me and my parents. We also had a perk of, if we decided to dorm on campus, dorming would be free to the students who are from my university. So that was also covered, my housing. However, this is always different for everyone else, because sometimes maybe you'll have that access to a fully covered tuition, but you still may need to pay like $1,000 something or more for rent. Scholarships like the Gilman Scholarship could help with that. So it's always great to consider, as well as looking into other scholarships. Of course, always be careful, because certain ones can only be used at certain schools or only works for certain seasons as well. A normal thing that everyone does when trying to save up money for studying abroad, which is working more hours at your part-time job and just kind of not going out. I remember my coordinator saying like, sometimes you get a part-time job, you may have to just eat raw, cup noodles for a little bit, but in a way you're gonna be somewhere you always wanted to go, and truly that work that you put in is truly worth it. The 4th step that you're all going to acquire is the actual application form, as well as travel insurance. Actually, let's reverse that. We're gonna talk about travel insurance, and then we'll talk about the university application. So an important thing, obviously, when going to a different country for a certain amount of time is to have travel insurance, because you never know, you may get sick, you may get injured, and in worst case scenario, as my coordinator brought up to me, there's a possibility of death, unfortunately. And of course, to send you back for any of those 3 reasons, travel insurance can cover for you for that. Of course, don't do anything stupid, make sure to stay healthy and watch yourself, but those are possible occurrences that can happen when you study abroad, so travel insurance is kind of a must. And even during the actual application processes, they're going to ask if you have it, which is a nice segue into my actual point of university applications. Every application will be different. As far as I know, most should be online now. I could be wrong. Some may also be in physical, you could say. But mine was online and it was quite short. The main important things that they wanted uploaded especially was obviously the valid passport as well as the travel insurance.
So this face, this stupid face right here, forgot to mention that you guys also need to have a copy of your transcript. Oh my god, I totally forgot and I'm so mad at myself, but you do need to have that to upload with your application because your school really needs that on file.
But also they will start asking questions about whether you will be dorming or dorming off campus or what type of track you'll be taking. So for me, obviously I took the English track because if I was learning in all Korean, I was going to fail immediately and not get any of my credits. So make sure you look through your application very thoroughly and try not to miss anything. Usually it should be pretty smooth sailing, but of course, if you have any other questions, make sure to email your coordinator because they will know how to answer it for you. By then, you should be accepted and then wait for extra paperwork. This is not really a step, but it's something to consider. During this time, as you wait for your application to be accepted, you may want to start looking at plane tickets because the closer you get to the time you're leaving, the more expensive it's obviously going to get. If you're from the US, you know how expensive it is to travel. For me, it was very expensive trying to find plane tickets to South Korea, and the biggest mistake that me and my friend made was to book 2 to 3 weeks before the time we wanted to arrive, which was on move-in day. We were very behind because we were obviously waiting for like visas and stuff like that, and we were a little stressed out. So we were again scrambling, but you know, we learned from our mistakes. We know we're not gonna do that again ever. So always keep in mind that you need to start looking at plane tickets pretty early on. But you've kind of reached the final stretch. Step 5 is receiving any paperwork from your university. This may not be for every university. I know some people get the emails, but from what I remember, my university in Seoul actually sent me 3 forms of paperwork, and they were very crucial for when I had to sign up for my visa. Last step, but not least, you are going to be doing your visa application. For the visa application, it does vary again from country to country, but always make sure to know which consulate or which embassy you have to go to, which one's ever closer to you and which one has the best appointments, and always keep track of what type of paperwork you need on their website. For exchange students, you need the D2 visa, which is specifically for students, and you're going to be filling out one application, which is like 5 pages. Once you make the actual appointment, you need to make sure to have all your paperwork. Before my actual visa process, I got my 3 letters from the university I went to, which were like 2 letters of business and then 1 letter of like certificate of admission. Basically, acceptance into the country and then my acceptance letter into the school. And I had to bring it with me with my application as well as my passport. The application itself is quite simple. It's a few pages. However, you're most likely not going to fill out everything. Most visa applications are quite universal and multi-purpose because everyone uses it and everyone will fill out certain information. However, other bits can be added in or taken out depending on what type of visa you plan on acquiring. So say you're getting like a work visa or like a residency sort of visa, sometimes you may put in or take out certain bits of information that students do not need. Of course, when filling it out, don't be afraid to reach out to your advisor or your coordinator because they will know what information needs to be put down on that paper. And it kind of just ensures a more smoother process because they've done it multiple times before. Once you go to the actual embassy or consulate with the appointment you have made, you're basically just going to present all that to the actual people who work there. You're gonna give them the application, you're gonna give them all 3 letters. I would suggest making copies so you can give them the originals and keep the copies for yourself for later use. And also make sure to present your passport because they want to ensure it's valid.
Oh my god, she keeps forgetting information. Another thing you guys are going to need to bring with you to your visa appointment is a flight itinerary for wherever you're going, because on the application it needs a date of when you arrive in that country and the date you leave that country, and that's very important.
Sometimes they will ask for your travel plans, so usually you would want to have a ticket booked for that time. However, it really varies, so keep that in mind. I was very lucky when going there because I remember I showed up maybe 30 minutes early to my appointment and I actually left 15 minutes after my appointment started. So, be punctual as much as you can, and be confident that you have all your information in line, but of course do be careful that you're not missing anything, because that will make you fall behind a little bit. And usually the visa takes up to 2 weeks to process. And with the visa, you're gonna get the email for the actual visa grant notice. So print that out, make sure that you have a bunch of copies, and that's kind of it. And within 2 weeks, you should get an email with the actual visa grant notice, which has kind of like a little barcode that you present at immigration. You're pretty much done. Again, I'm not very organized with my thoughts or my words, and maybe this video is going to be very confusing, and forgive me for that, but I do hope that I was able to give some valuable bits of information and just insight to how you would go about the process. I do have a few tips, and really it's just, again, just to tie everything together. Like, tip number 1, make sure you can always contact your advisor or your coordinator, because again, they have experience with doing all this paperwork and organizing all the types of things you need to ensure you can get into the country as efficiently as possible. Don't think that any of your questions are stupid, because there's no such thing as a stupid question. Because those types of situations, especially when you're independent and on your own in another country, like, you do not want to just be wandering around and not know what you're doing. Tip number 2 is to write down all your deadlines if you can. Sometimes they're a little unclear, sometimes they're not finalized, and you need to just kind of watch out and make sure everything is on time. Just in a timely manner, try to fill out everything as efficiently as possible, and of course don't be afraid to ask for corrections, and kind of just have them prepared before the deadlines, because it will save you so much stress and it will make everything go more smoothly. Third, make sure you make copies of all your paperwork. I may have made too many copies, but you always need copies of everything, especially when traveling abroad, because if you forget something that you may need, it'd be really stressful for you. So what I do is always make about 3 to 4 copies of your passport, in color, because they're more likely to take it that way. Make sure to make copies of your visa grant, copies of your travel insurance, as well as all the certificate of admissions and those letters of business. Those may be important later on. And always have extra passport photos. As I figured out, at least for my dorm and then for my alien registration card, which is just kind of a residency card in Korea, it was good to have extra photos instead of you running around trying to get different ones. So always keep in mind like what type of airline you want to go in, if you're making any stops in any other countries, as well as the times of arrival and the times of departure, because those are the biggest factors of if you will make it on to move-in day, if you're like me who decided to dorm, or if you're going to make it in time for the semester in general, and just make sure you have all your paperwork in order for classes. Another paper that I think most universities will give you or suggest to give you is a form of immunization. It's just basically a letter that you need your doctor to sign, just proving that you have all your immunization shots and everything and that you're safe to go into the country. However, of course, you may also have to take health checks when you get to certain countries, especially if you're dorming, because it is kind of important to have those records on hand because they may ask for it to ensure a safer, living environment, you could say. That's where I also got a copy of my immunization records. It wasn't required, but I just brought it in case because you never know if you get sick or if you get injured or anything like that. It's always good to have that copy so you can give to the doctors there in the country you're in so they know what to look out for, what to avoid, etc., etc. So make sure to have a few copies of those because truly you're just kind of looking out for yourself at that point. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You've accomplished all the steps to the paperwork process. Again, quite boring process, but truly it is really worth it at the end because you get to study in these amazing places and get to live somewhere completely different. At the end of the day, you kind of just forget about it. Once you've landed and you've settled down in your university, truly it's just kind of like that labor of love for yourself. So I know I may have missed things and it was not the most organized, but I really hope that this can help those who really want to study abroad and that it kind of clears up any stresses that may occur, because again, it is a stressful process, and I'm not gonna lie, remembering all that was very stressful too. You just have to power through it because it's kind of like reaching for what you want, just powering through, and you earn what you deserve. And yeah, I hope you all stick around for the rest of this series because again, this video was very boring, but I hope from here everything goes up because I will be talking about packing and getting there and then just sharing stories about my time in South Korea, and maybe it'll help you guys look forward to your time in whatever country you're in as well. So thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!